military industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
The fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air, we shall never surrender.
My prepper brothers and sisters, you've arrived at the bunker. Grab a cup of joe, a stout tea, or maybe your favorite adult beverage. This is the prepper's place for open discussion on whatever the hell we want. Brought to you whatever the hell way we want. This is the new format of Top's Bunker. So sit down, kick back, post up, relax, and welcome to the bunker.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Military industrial complex.
And we as a people will get to the promised land.
We will make America strong again, proud again, safe again. We will make America great again.
Preppers, survivalists, off-gridders, homesteaders, and the like. Welcome to Top's Bunker, a podcast for preppers. Leave a voicemail to get on the show, speakpipe.com/tops, or use the live message option on our Facebook group, Top's Bunker. Email us at shtf@topsbunker.com. Visit our site, topsbunker.com. Well, I guess I shouldn't assume, so I'll just say this. I hope all of y'all have been following what's been dominating the headlines all week. The wildfire disaster devastating California. This week, there are several wildfires burning across vast areas of Los Angeles, threatening homes, businesses, and lives. The numbers are staggering. At the time of this recording, at least 10 lives have been lost. 150,000 people have been evacuated. 34,000 acres have been burnt to the ground between the Palisades and Eaton fires alone. More than 10,000 buildings are destroyed. And to make things even worse, a brand new fire in the San Fernando Valley has prompted even more evacuation orders. An army of looters have descended on the area, grabbing everything that they can get their grubby little hands on. Only 20 looters at this time have been arrested. The smoke has turned skies orange in some areas and worsened air quality to dangerous levels, not just in California, but reaching into neighboring states. But beyond the headlines, there's a real human impact. The firefighters on the front lines, the families displaced, the first responders, and the volunteers working tirelessly to provide relief. Houses, vehicles, schools, municipal buildings, businesses, roads and bridges, farmland, infrastructure, and communication all gone in the affected areas. Officials say that the damage is at least $8.5 billion so far, and that number will most likely double when this disaster is contained. Tonight, we're going to break down what's happening in California and how we can prepare for wildfires, whether you're in the direct path of one or not. We'll cover the essentials, what you need in your wildfire emergency kit, how to create an evacuation plan, and what kind of protective gear can help you stay safe if you need to leave in a hurry. And as always, guys, please check the show notes for valuable info and links. Now let's go ahead and get to it.
I hope so, and I hope their mayor actually answers a question or opens up her mouth.
Is she back from vacation yet?
She is. And I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and play this first one here and we'll see.
California Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass are facing intense criticism around the state and city's preparedness for the wildfires. Bass, who just yesterday returned from a trip to Ghana, taking questions from some pretty frustrated reporters moments ago.
We watched as hundreds of homes in a neighborhood burned to the ground. We did not see a single fire engine. We watched as Good Samaritans guided traffic. There was fear and there was a lot of confusion. You were out of the country at the time. Shortly after the fire started, a press release was put out warning of this fire behavior. My question to you is, what explains this lack of preparation and rapid response?
We will absolutely do an evaluation to look at what worked, what didn't work, and to correct or to hold accountable any body, department, individual, etc. But my focus right now is on the lives and on the homes.
Trace, I wonder what your take is in response to what people are hearing from Mayor Karen Bass, who says basically, well, we're doing the best we can and people will be held accountable.
I mean, people are offended. The people we talk to, Martha, are kind of offended by that. They keep hearing Karen Bass, who, by the way, was in Ghana when the worst of this was going on. They keep hearing the mayor saying, listen, this was all about the win. And we didn't prepare for this. And we couldn't fight this. And people are like, no, you didn't have just wind. You didn't have water. And you didn't have firefighters to spray that water. And had you had planning and more water and fire hydrants that were checked and worked, you could have saved a lot more houses. You're not going to save all the houses, but you could have saved more. So you talk to the people in and around Pacific Palisades, and they are angry at the response. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. People here are angry at the response. This is house after house, street after street, block after block, looks just like this. I mean, I would estimate that 60% of this town, Martha, is absolutely gone. Total lack of preparation. We have fires every single year, many times a year. It's been happening for hundreds of years. The people have lived in Los Angeles, and the people you talk to here in Palisades are upset that the preparation level was not what it should be. They pay the highest taxes in the country. They pay the highest gas taxes. They pay a lot of the highest things, and the preparation and what they got in return for their tax dollars is not what they expected, Martha.
President-elect Trump been going after the governor of California pretty hard, and he says that the governor should immediately go to Northern California and open up the water main and let the water flow to his dry, starving, burning state instead of having it go out to the Pacific Ocean. It ought to be done right now. No more excuses from this incompetent governor. It is already far too late. Can you explain, what your understanding is of that situation as a resident of California and a reporter, Trace?
Sure. He limited the water. What happened is that the state of California limited the water that comes from Northern California and beyond down to Southern California to protect a fish that doesn't need a lot of water. So they limited the water flow that comes down here. And more importantly, Martha, more than a decade ago, the people of California voted and they passed a proposition, a measure to retain, to capture the water, to build more reservoirs. And they started taking money to do that. It's been more than a decade. Not a single reservoir has been built. So the water capacity is the same. The water reservoirs are full around the state because we had very wet years for the past couple of years, but you can't get that water, and the water is not allocated in Southern California.
I guess that's what elections are for.
Wow. Yeah, so what do you think about that, man? That's crazy.
Well, I mean,
these people paid for it.
Put on your tinfoil hat. I mean, there's a few data points in there and then a few to add to it. Where's that high-speed train that they passed and got all the federal funding for as well? Where's that? It's been over 10 years.
And where's the money for that? Where'd it go?
Yeah, it's squandered. What can you say, man? Their policies there, man. The people vote. They're voting with their hearts and their emotions, and not for common sense. And they're just not getting anything out of what they vote. From their leaders that they need. Leader, just in the word alone, leader is leadership. And when you have leaders that either don't act or make the wrong decisions, then they have to go. And they alluded to in that segment there is you have to have accountability, and accountability starts at the top. Gavin Newsom needs to go. The communist Bass, she's a dyed-in-the-wool communist. Just do some research on her and get some history on her, and you'll see where she comes from. The DEI stuff is killing that whole state. What can you say?
Well, I got a lot of friends that live out there, and I always ask them when they get out of the military, I'm like, dude, why are you going back there? Why are you going back to California? Well, I don't even know why California is still a thing. I don't know what attracts them to it, but for some reason, they go back out there and they think that they're going to be able to live comfortably, and they end up, a lot of them come back to a state where it's like they're not paying out the nose just to be able to fill up their tank of gas. And as bad as I want to feel for the people out there, and I do, you can only punch yourself in the nuts so many times before it's like, hey man, you should stop punching yourself in the nuts. They've been doing this to themselves for forever. I don't know why they're doing it. You know, Ronald Reagan was the governor of California. He actually was a Democrat at one point, but he became a very conservative person, and not even necessarily, he was a Republican, but he had a lot of libertarian ideas. And, you know, people are like, oh, well, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a Republican. He ran on the Republican ticket. Okay, cool. Got it. That doesn't necessarily mean that he was a conservative.
That's because you can be a liberal and still have some conservative values.
Yes.
They draw a line. They say, no, I'm liberal. That's it. But this is what happens, though.
Yeah. And again, you can only punch yourself in the nuts so many times before I started to feel bad for you.
I'm conservative and I vote Republican, but I have some thoughts that lean closer to center and even on the liberal side. You don't have to be completely 100% on one side. And right. California, for all of our listeners who may not know, and maybe in other countries, California is beautiful. It is one of the most incredible states that we have. When you go from the far north all the way down to the south, everything changes. It's got some of the most beautiful landscape. Great foods, great people. They got the coastline. It's an amazing place. It's just run really bad.
Yeah.
It's like they take the whole liberal standpoint way too far.
You know, there's a difference between progressive and liberal, you know, when you want to dig down into the terminology and to the words. I think we all use the term liberal kind of out of context anymore. I mean, before you were either conservative or liberal. Now, the whole left is, you know, the far left is communist, and there's a progressive wing in there, and then somewhere in the center now is your liberals. And most of the liberals, you're right, they do have conservative values and stances, but you know what, that line's shifting to where you know, it's in. They want to paint the solid line in between the Republicans and Democrats. Into far left, far right. It's either far right, you get into the conservative, even liberals are starting to switch now. And that's where we're getting it on the Republican side. We're getting the migration that's coming from liberals, actually, that it's not the party that they had before.
And if you disagree, if you have any contention towards their point of views, that's when they use the power of the media and social media, and they are absolutely compelled to paint anyone who disagrees with their point of view as an evil person. And they pull out the classics: misogynist, you know, racist, homophobic, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to use, I guarantee you, they're going to use these fires as a way to get that point across. That's exactly what they're going to do.
They're already saying, oh, it's climate change.
Oh, you know? Dude. Oh, my God.
I mean, I before this even started, man, this is what just I can't get over. Before this whole thing even started, I've got a blurb, you know, my daily, you know, intelligence gathering about the Palisades winds. And they say, oh, this year it's going to be, and it happens every year at this time. For hundreds of years, right?
Dude, it's been happening for thousands of years. That reporter was correct. In the archaeological record, there has been fires for thousands, as far as back as they can look, there has been fires in that region. Texas is always going to be hot. You can't go down to Texas and go, oh my God, it's so hot this year. No, it's always been hot in Texas.
Yeah.
True. Very true. So what's changed this year? Why is it so bad this year? Well, they're allowing things to happen this year. They're allowing change and you know, tinfoil hat here again. There's some policies that's been placed, put into effect, and some changing of some things to where, you know, they're wanting to look at people who buy property and put in companies in those areas. There's a DEI, BlackRock factor in there where, you have to be a certain color or, think a certain way, vote a certain way to get these, granted the permits that you need to build in these areas. And it's kind of like the tinfoil hat stuff in North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. This is why I say I don't even know why. And I, if we have listeners in California,
we do.
We make your own assessment of what you got to do for yourself. However, I do not know why California is a thing. And I don't know why people care about what California says. Yeah, everything gives you damn cancer. Okay, we got it. Cool. You vape. I get it. But instead of telling us everything causes cancer, get a couple of construction crews, go into the forests and clean out the underbrush and all of the dead material, which is what causes these massive fires.
And create jobs in this process.
Yes. You're a coastal state. There will always be wind coming from the coast. It is a thing. Go clean up your forest floors and stop giving a damn about some microorganism that you don't actually care about, and clean up your forest floors. We have forests all over North Carolina. We are massively covered in forest and pine burns in a heartbeat. But we don't have the massive forest fires because every year they do controlled burns. They do take care of the underbrush. They go in there and they clean it out. Every year. It's a thing. It's required. You got to do it.
Yeah. If you don't have the good, hygiene with your environment, you can only save so many red-headed woodpeckers and shit beetles or dung beetles, It's part of evolution, and that's what these people don't understand. Climate change has something it's happened. I mean, this earth was covered in water at one point, and it was on ice at one point.
Climate change is real. Want to know why? Because the climate is always changing. It has always been changing since the earth was created.
And the earth is so resilient that we're popping back. So, you can have some virtuous thing that makes you feel good. And, I went out and hugged a tree today. I feel so fucking good about myself. Well, guess what? You know what I mean? Good for you, asshole.
I know that it goes a lot more in depth to this, but some of these really far left people, they scream and holler and cry at times that the conservatives are going to try and control their lives and push them into doing things they don't want to and that sort of thing. And what I don't understand is that I am a conservative and I do vote Republican. And the number one thing in my life is that I will not be controlled.
Yeah.
So where's their thought process coming from here? It doesn't make any sense. These people living in California, they have so many rules and regulations and standards of living and all this other stuff. They are being controlled.
It comes from a mental state. I mean, they live in fear that, they won't get to do what they want.
We do what we want all the time.
I call them crazy, it's fear. They fear that we're going to come in and make them go to church.
They've also been trained into dependency upon government. That is really what it is. They have become absolute. And again, this goes back to a book that I would always tell people to read. It's Okay to Leave the Plantation. It was written by an African-American guy. Oh, dude, it's crazy. It is absolutely madness. Everything that you see in California was written and talked about back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it has all come to pass. And what really has become of California, and this goes back to the fires and it goes back to policies, because Californians have been subjected to basically a test. Can we make at least one state within the United States completely communist? And that is exactly what is taking place over there. And because of the policies that they keep voting for, this is the cause and effect. This is the effect. The cause, you keep voting for the same people over and over again. What has Nancy Pelosi ever done to stop one of those fires? Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing.
Isn't that her state?
Yeah. Yeah. It's also Kamala Harris's state. What has Kamala done to stop the fires? Nothing. Not a damn thing. And yet they're all multimillionaires, especially Nancy Pelosi.
They come into office with nothing, and then it's very. I mean, I've even seen it on the other side of the aisle too. I know a few guys who are way in a better place now than what they did, before they started their term in DC. So,
well, votes matter, and the thing is, they can choose to find other Democrats to lead them than the ones that are leading them now. And I want to play something here. You guys know the actor James Woods?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite actors. I think he's fantastic. I'm going to play you this right quick.
Standing in my driveway getting ready to evacuate. We've got a lot of planes going over, dropping water, but we found out that none of us is a celebrity. None of us is a poor person or a rich person, a Democrat or a Republican. We were just neighbors, just really helping each other. That one video was my neighbor who, after we had evacuated, before he evacuated, ran down to my house to try to stop that fire coming over my deck. All I know now from him, he stayed overnight, which he shouldn't have done, fighting the fire. There was no water pressure, of course. All the fire hydrants were dead, as we now know. The fire trucks are there, but they couldn't pump water, as it turned out. He fought the fire himself of his house with a bucket in the pool. And this morning texted me and said, look, I had 3 hours sleep. I just got up. The houses on either side of you have burned down. Every house across the street from you is burned down, but I can see your roof. Now, I have a wooden house with wooden beams. If you can see my roof, it may be gutted. It may be, we don't know. And all we know is that at midnight, when the trucks were there, all the fire alarms were going off in our house remotely to our phones. Sarah and I were both getting, hallway monitor is on, bedroom monitor is on. It was as if you could, track the fire as it was going through your house. But it could have been the smoke from the houses next door. I don't know. The house next to us is a 94-year-old gentleman who has advanced dementia. He has a caregiver. I get down the hill and I said to Sarah, we've got to call Francis, his son, who lives in, I think he's a professor at Harvard or something, to just make sure his dad isn't in the house. I think he's in the hospital. I'm pretty sure. I said, your dad's in the hospital, right? He goes, no, he's in the house with a new caregiver. I don't know who they are. So Robert went down. It turned out, he said, no, there's nobody there. And he said, the front door's open. It turned out later that the fire department had said to the caregiver, who was new, they said, you must evacuate. We will come back for him. Don't worry. And they either forgot or they hadn't gotten there yet.
Oh, my goodness. So
Robert went in the house. He said, there's nobody here. I said, they keep him in a little room that used to be the so-called maid's room. They got him out and the house burned down an hour later.
Oh, my. You guys pay, I think, the highest taxes in the United States. If not, you and New York are kind of tied, or Illinois, but among the highest. No water in the hydrants. 17.6 million cut from the fire department. Karen Bass, a recent headline, I think you might have tweeted that out from the New York Post.
Yeah, the people in charge, she took over and she put on her bio that her priority, my highest priority, is inclusion, diversity, and equity. That is my priority. And somebody forgot to fill all the reservoirs, I guess, with water, because when I was getting smoke alarms, there was a fire truck parked in front of my house. But they couldn't pump any water because there was none, because they didn't put them in the reservoirs. Okay? Laura, with all due respect, if it is true that things were handled this way, if it is true that Gavin Newsom is the absolute blithering idiot that I believe he is in the way he has handled fire management in this state again and again and again and again, this isn't a wake-up call. This is the kind of thing they have tribunals for, where they try people and say, you had an oath of office to perform certain duties. When you're the fire chief, this isn't a social justice exercise that you're in charge of. This is you getting water to areas that need water because there are fires in 100-mile-an-hour winds burning houses to the ground. I watched on a Ring camera a guy have to sit and watch his pet burn to death. Those things are issues of the heart. Look, my home is a building. We worked 3 years putting the home together. We loved our little house, but it means nothing compared to the 5 people who lost their lives.
One individual who goes by @Piper K, I guess a former faculty member at Mizzou, Karen Piper, she tweeted, and she since deleted the tweet, James Woods' house is burning down. It's karma calling.
Yeah, I mean, that's, when I read that, I look for a curb so that I can find some place to scrape her off my shoe. I'm more concerned about my neighbors and their homes that they lost. I don't really care what she has to say. Yeah. She means nothing to me. She is, to me, a fleck of spit on the arc of infinity.
That anyone would think any of that about anyone at a moment like this.
On the 4th of July in the Palisades, everybody would have folding chairs that would be set out with their names on them and would have a little 4th of July parade. Everybody had flags. It was like America at its best. Nobody cared whether you were a Democrat or a Republican or black or white or green or yellow or gay or straight. It was people celebrating the 4th of July in a beautiful little neighborhood with sidewalks, and you feel safe, and there's no tents and needles and crap. And
a fleck of spit on the arc of infinity. Man, I got to write that down. That's great. Well, there's a lot of political stuff in regards to this fire, but what we really got to get to is how do we get ready for these kinds of things, and what is a wildfire? Well, according to National Geographic, a wildfire is an uncontrolled fire that burns in wildland vegetation, often in rural areas. Wildfires can burn in forests, grasslands, savannas, and other ecosystems, and have been going so for hundreds of millions of years. They are not limited to a particular continent or environment. So this has been happening, obviously, since the dawn of man, since the dawn of time. Lightning strikes a tree, causes a fire, wood burns, spreads to other places, and then eventually it goes out. Once there's no more fuel to consume, because you got to think of fire like an engine, it has to have certain things in order to burn, then it goes out eventually. So this is not a new thing. But there are a bunch of stuff that you have to do in order to be prepared. And, as people who are prepared, it's not necessarily a new thing, but it's something that everybody should do. I've got this basically broken down as to what do you need and some of the things that you absolutely need in the event. And really what you got to have is a plan first. If you don't have a plan, really having stuff means, absolutely nothing, because we always talk about this. You have to train, you have to get ready, you have to be prepared for, whatever may happen. And I did find something I found pretty interesting, and they called it the 6 P's of evacuation. People and pets, papers, phone numbers, and important documents, prescriptions, vitamins and eyeglasses, pictures and irreplaceable memorabilia, personal computer, hard drive and disks, and plastic, which is credit cards, ATMs, cards, and cash. Cash is king, and cash will always be used. But you got to have the plan first. You have to have a place to meet. And this isn't just for a forest fire. This is also for house fires. This is for any of the things that, could be happening. We got a lot of snow coming this way. You could have a collapsed roof. You could have any kind of really incident weather-wise, but you have to have a place to meet. You got to know how to get out, which is your escape routes. You have to be able to practice these every once in a while because roads change. Conditions change very rapidly. Animal arrangements. If you do have animals, like we have 3 large dogs, you got to know what you're going to do with them and how you're going to do it. And you got to have a communication plan, not just with family, but with friends who are also in the immediate area, your neighbors. Kind of like what James Woods was saying, having an elderly person next door can be a point of concern. I have an elderly guy next door. He's a Vietnam vet. Do I 100% believe that if something were to happen that he would just go ahead and say, ride the lightning and let it happen? Absolutely. But I still want to check on him. He's a Vietnam vet and he has lived his life the way he wants to live it. And if something crazy were to happen, I guarantee you he would just let it happen. But check on your neighbors because it's the right thing to do. And you got to have an emergency kit. Some of the stuff that I was able to find, it really what your emergency kit for fires comes down to is what is it that is a priority? A lot of people may be tempted to take stuff like, they want to grab their expensive electronics. They want to grab their jewelry, those kinds of things. But what they don't think about is important documentation. You could grab your bag and run out, and then, come back, your house is completely gone, and it comes time to do insurance claims and whatnot. Where's your deed? Where is the deed to your house? Where are all of the insurance documents and all those kinds of things? People who are former military, a lot of people don't think to grab that copy of your DD-214 and have it somewhere safe and take it with you. Passports, Social Security card, marriage licenses, all those kinds of things. And now in our day and age, we actually have the ability to scan those in, create a digital image of it, put it on a hard drive that you can put in a bag, and make several of them. So that way, if you do have to leave, you get to your meeting point and you're trying to reconsolidate and rebuild, you've got all your digital documents right there, and then you can rebuild, from that. And of course, like we always talking about, having a go bag ready to go with the things that you need. And I did this basically breaking down the rules of 3 and the 10 C's. Knowing where to go, like I said before, a meeting place, but not in a panicked decision. You got to know where to go. And that panic decision, the first rule of 3 is 3 seconds without a decision. You've got to be able to make a snap decision. When it's time to go, it's time to go. You don't have time to dilly-dally. You need to be able to have a protective mask with filters. That's your 3 minutes without breathable air. Shelter making material, tents, folding sheets and plastics, duct tape, and that kind of things. You're going to make it about 3 hours without shelter. Water. We always preach water. Keith, I know you're huge on water. You can only go typically 3 days, maybe 4, without potable water. Non-perishable foods in cans or pouches, 3 weeks without food. And then you go into your first aid. Burns, and I've been burned badly on the face from a mortar round. Burns are a very unique wound in that, yes, the surface of the skin is damaged, but really it's underneath the dermis damage that gets you is really what kills people with burns, and smoke inhalation and those kinds of things. Burns are absolutely horrible. They are terrible, especially when they get beyond second degree burns, or, certain larger portions of your body are burned. A lot of us cook on a grill, and you may have been burned on the forearms. I've been burned badly on a grill. I had a grill catch on fire and it was bad, but it did not even compare to the heat flash that I got burned on the face because of the sensitivity of your face. If you want to see how bad burns can be, just go to the Fort Sam Houston page, and Fort Sam Houston has basically the world's largest burn trauma unit, and burn victims from all over the world get brought there because they specialize in burns. Prescription and over-the-counter medications is always going to be big. You can have a great go bag and, all these wonderful things, but you didn't bring your insulin and a way to keep it cold, you might be hurting. If you're going to bring cans, you got to have a can opener. You need to have some extra clothing, so that way, if you do end up having to go to a shelter, you've got something to change into. The smell from smoke and soot and all the things that gather in your clothes lingers for days and days, and sometimes longer. Wet wipes for sanitation, headlamp for being able to see. And I saw something years ago, and it was a firefighter, and he talked about what fire really is. Fire people have been using fire to create light, but in its actuality, fire is actually not light. It creates reflection off of surfaces that look like light. But if you've ever been in a house fire or where there is a significant amount of smoke and you're trying to walk, you better get on the ground and start crawling, because as the heat rises and the smoke goes basically like water, where those winds go and the heat goes, you have to get low to be able to see your way out. You need to have protective eyeglasses or something to put over your eyes because smoke burns badly in your eyes. A battery operated or hand cranked radio. And we also talk about our Baofangs and our ham radios and even using FRS, those small, inexpensive, but you can use them within a close distance kind of radios. And you need to have a backup battery for every electronic device that you decide to have. And of course, a whistle. A whistle is a great way to draw attention to yourself, telling, rescuers, hey, I'm over here. Come look for me, please. I can't remember where it was. I think it was California, may have been somewhere else, maybe Washington State. But they have aircraft that are capable of going along, dipping down into the water. They pick up water and then they carry it to the location of the fire. Why the reason I say that is sometimes you find crazy things in a fire. They found a diver dead in a tree, burned alive, in the middle of a forest fire in full scuba gear, because when the aircraft dropped down, yeah, absolutely. Aircraft dropped down and went to go pick up the water, and what they actually accidentally picked up was a diver. Dumped him out over the water, and they found his body there.
What are the odds?
You're telling me that somebody was diving like in a lake or an ocean, and when they went to scoop the water up, they scooped the person up?
Yes.
What are the odds?
Can you imagine what that would have been like to being down there in the in the water?
Oh my God.
If that happens, it was your time to go.
Darwinism,
man, I'm telling you. But on the last thing on that particular list, you've got the stuff that you absolutely need. And then you have some stuff that you need to think about whether or not you're going to be able to bring. Fire burns everything. However, doesn't necessarily melt steel beams. But, if you've got a computer that's easy to grab, that has a lot of information on it, try to grab it, stuff it in a bag. Photos, they are important to a lot of people. I like photos. I have hundreds of them. I just don't know if I would really take the time to grab them. Family heirlooms, expensive jewelry kind of thing. It's hard to let stuff go, and a lot of people are driven by material possessions, and I get it. But you really have to decide, what is the more important thing, getting my family out or grabbing this little trinket, and if you do have kids, it is probably important to think about having something for them to play with, because once you're beyond the immediate danger and you are in a safer environment, they got to have something to do. And if you don't have those, stupid electronic devices that every child is addicted to right now, you're going to have something for them to play with. And they're going to need it. You've taken a child forcibly out of what is their comfort zone, and there's an emergency and you said, gotta go. And they're pulled completely out of that lifestyle into something that is completely foreign to them. And some kids don't have the ability to respond well, to that.
It's a high anxiety situation where, you can actually suffer mentally.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a child. I think that if you're in an area that is prone to or could have wildfires, which is a lot of places in the United States, by the way, and I don't know about the rest of the world, but for sure the United States and Canada are very prone to the United States. We've got a lot of timber out there. I think you probably would do well adding a few fire protection suits for your family. They make them cheap. I say they're cheap. I seen them. I thought about them, but then I didn't get them because I'm not in a wildfire prone area. But they started somewhere around $120 per person. If you're in a place like California or a place that really has a danger of wildfires, you should probably put a couple of those in your kit in case you have to get out on foot.
That's definitely something that I've added to my kit after some wildfires that were in Panhandle, Texas last year, and Western Oklahoma, that I got to go out and witness. And, a lot of my thinking for what I put in the show notes here and some of the kit is just from the visit we had out there, which sparked us, me and a buddy of mine, which if you've listened, you've heard him a couple times on the show. we've started a nonprofit to deal with situations like this. And just over a visit out there, it's like, hey, let's go out and check it out. He got asked to go, and because of his position in government, and we went out there and checked it out and looked around and talked to different people and got some lessons learned. And there was a lady who actually burned. She burned up because she got caught in the fire, and then she ditched her vehicle, which she more than likely should have stayed in, and took off on foot, and got disorientated in the smoke, and they found her, later deceased. So a fire blanket at a minimum is something you're definitely going to need, and they're a little heavier than your lighter weight bug out gear, but man, you can get rolled up in those. I've seen videos of wildland firefighters that, get in these little tents or a tarp or use these blankets that they carry with them.
Oh, you mean like in that movie, Only the Brave, I think it was called? Was it?
Yeah. They dig holes and they stick, roll up in as much as they can, and the fire just goes above them. Yeah. But, that's advanced stuff. But anyways, it could be some stuff to protect you. And so in the show notes, we dropped some, protective gear, something I've added to my medical kit, which, you hear me reference Refuge Medical. They have a burn kit that's pretty badass, and something you need to add to your kit. That you can have all the Band-Aids in the world and a tourniquet, but what it burns happen all the time. So it's something you need to add to your kit. At least some ointment, some burn dressings, and those kind of things. And it might be something you don't have in your immediate kit that you carry on your your IFAC. On your person. You might have it in a bag somewhere that you can get to later. But
what do you mean by IFAC?
It means individual first aid kit.
So have an IFAC or have it added to your medical gear. It's a combat multiplier for you. Some of the things that I see that from lessons learned from the wildfire in California, other ones I've seen, and then the ones in Texas Panhandle, Western Oklahoma, is people had no plan, and Jeremy touched on it, and you've heard it from me before. Go out there and do an area study. It should be on everybody's mind. It's one of those things where when you're doing your area study and you're sitting down and brainstorming. Okay, what's the immediate threats that I have? Well, is it going to be a hurricane? Is it a tornado? Well, fires. Everybody can check the block on a fire. It's just one of those things where nobody's immune to it. So definitely put that in your area study. You need to have various routes. Okay, well, I can't go left. I need to go right. Well, I can't take the interstate because it's blocked off. Now where do I go? Have a map with you, a paper map. That's something I carry with me. It's in a bug out bag of my area. I've got satellite maps that I bought or printed out.
You just touched on the whole thing with cars, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but there are videos. If you go right now and you check the fires in California, highways, they are completely blocked with cars because people were in the cars and they couldn't move, and the fire was coming, so they ran out of their cars. And it was so bad that the fire departments actually had to bring in bulldozers to bulldoze the cars off the highways. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking, oh, that doesn't happen, that's only in movies. This is not only in movies. It just happened 2 days ago in California.
Yeah. So, your plan might be to drive into the sunset and save the day. But what happens if you can't drive into sunset? So, taking, grandma's or great grandmother's China set with you because you want to save it. Well, I'm sticking to a bug out bag, and a thumb drive with all my documents in it that I, like Jeremy said, that's a great plan. If I can't carry it, I'm not taking it with me just because, you're more than likely you're going to be on foot at some point. So, and you can't secure your stuff after, there's looting going on. They're finding out a lot of the looting going on in these larger homes, And
I saw videos, man. They're just walking right into people's houses and they're just taking their TVs, their jewelry, their safes. They're taking everything.
Well, you're seeing the same people looting, starting fires in certain areas, and it's not your rent-free, I don't pay for rent areas either. They're starting these larger scale stuff, and then they're going in and looting them. So keep that on your bingo card.
Well, I was thinking also, though, and I don't have one of these, but I was thinking maybe a fireproof safe, so you don't have to carry them. You can always go back later and get it. I don't know how they work. I don't know anything about them.
I have a handheld
safe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, buddy.
I have a handheld, I call it a suitcase safe. I got actually 2 of them that all my documents go in, and then that will go into a larger safe until I need it. But, the first thing I do is like, I got to bug out, I'm grabbing my bug out bag, maybe supplementing a few other things like grabbing my battery bank. I've migrated over from lithium batteries to everything that plugs into the USB-C. With a solar, because it's just making sense and the technology is there now. So I'm taking a certain amount of things, but I got my bug out bag ready. I got, food for my dogs the last 3 days, some, water. I've got everything ready to go. And then I grab that out of the other safe. So, little fireproof safes are good with your documents in it. Good to go there. But, going back to the area study, man, you got to have a plan. You got to know the evacuation routes. What does FEMA or the local state authorities say are my routes? You got to know those. And then you got to know alternate routes. You have to pre-plan. You got to have maps. You got to think of all these things, unless you don't want to survive, and follow the crowd might be walking to their death. I don't know if you've ever seen a bunch of cattle at the feedlots, getting ready to be sold and slaughtered and stuff.
Well, that's right.
They follow each other around,
People in panic usually follow each other blindlessly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's human nature. So also one of the things you need to also have is, your routes. You need to pre-plan rally points. You need to pre-plan, where am I going to go if this XYZ happens, whatever, plug it into any scenario. Okay, well, and have alternate ones. Maybe you're going to go to your bug out location because, that's where you're set up to go. Well, there's got to be rally points, meaning there's got to be little meetup points in between there, because I might be coming from work and my wife's coming from work, or, my daughters are coming from work and we all work at different sides of town. Where are we going to meet up to go to, that certain place? So have different rally points.
They could be as simple as a park. I mean, it could be anywhere. It could be just someplace, depending on where your area is. If you're urban, if you're out in the rural areas, pick a few spots, north, south, east, west, for your family to meet. This is a meeting point. Put it in your notes and get everybody trained on it.
Yeah, and it could be a permanent shelter for you for a while. So keep that in mind too. So when you're doing your rally point selection, you want to make sure that, you can sustain from that area. And, park's a perfect place. But, I won't go too in depth in that. Know where the shelters are. What are the shelter areas, or the likely shelter areas for an event like this? So a lot of times the shelters that you use for natural disasters or any kind of man-made disasters.
You mean like in city centers, like actual shelters, built shelters?
Yeah. High school gyms are used all the time. There might be other, in Katrina, they used the, what was that called? Superdome down there. So there's, different areas that are traditionally used, know where those are, because you might end up in one of them or have to go pick up grandma from it because that's where she went, because she followed the herd.
I can tell you that in our area, and this has been in several areas that I've lived, but specifically right now where I'm living, our local fire department has events all throughout the year, Christmas events and Thanksgiving events and Halloween events and summer events. And they have all these things. Go to them. Go to these things are made for the people in the town. They're not made for the firemen and their families. It's made for everybody. Go to them and actually meet the people that fight the fires, and talk with them and hang out with them, get to know them.
Well, then that's the other point. Another point, a data point for the area study is you need to know where your medical facilities are in your area and the fire departments, because fire police stations are places to go for safety. The they're in their nature, in their job description, they're there for protection. So, those are great points, Keith. Another point, I got 2 more points here, and I'll shut up because I will ramble. Make sure you have a comms plan, your PACE plan for your communications. Your cell phone's not always going to work, especially in areas with a wildfire where, comms are going to be down. Your cell phone's not going to work because the cell towers are all burned out. Okay, so how are you going to communicate then? So have a plan. The little Baofeng radios, the little 5 watts, are a good thing to have and carry with you every day, because you can use those little radios for not only to communicate with, but they also are equipped with no weather radio, and you can scan with those. They have scan functions to where you can get some information on how, what's going on around me. They're saying you're hearing people talk, hey, I'm from, this part of town. Don't come here where everybody's evacuating. Well, that's part of my bug out plan. Where am I going to go now? So, and information is power. I mean, especially in situations like this, the more information you have, your likelihood of survival is going to be even better. And my last data point for this is, leave early. If they say, hey, it's time to evacuate, get the hell out of Dodge, man. Don't wait till the last minute, because you might not be able to leave at the last minute. And how are you going to know when the best time to go if you're in you're in a communication blackout situation where you have no, knowledge at all what's going on around you. So, your gut usually tells you. The thing is, you can leave early and you can always go back if you can, but you can't always leave late and survive it. So, just remember that. So get the hell out of Dodge. And you know what? And train. Keith, you said it, and Jeremy's touched on it. The whole thing is planning. I mean, we had a saying in the military, intelligence drives the fight. Without the proper data, without the proper decision-making process, you're going to make stupid bonehead decisions. And if you can live through it, you're going to like, oh, okay, I won't do that next time, but there might not be a next time.
It's a tragedy that's happening here in California. There may be a lot of listeners who are listening right now who have not paid attention to the news, have not know anything about this, haven't looked. This is apocalyptic. There are pictures from high altitude aerial pictures, maybe even satellite, I couldn't tell, that show it looks like the end of the world. There are not just a couple of houses. There are block after block, like hundreds of blocks of nothing but leveled cities.
Yeah. And looking at all the pictures and video, it actually eerily, not burned, but wet. It kind of reminded me of what I saw in the aftermath of being in the hurricane. It was truly apocalyptic.
The recent hurricane?
Yeah. When me and my mom were up in the mountains and we finally got out. But when you see an apocalyptic scene, it's like, oh my gosh, and
I couldn't take my eyes off of it, man. I kept one video after another. I'm like, oh my God. And you know what? You got celebrities who you think are like multimillionaires and, can have a helicopter flying. They got celebrities walking down the block with suitcases in their hand. I mean, it's bad. It's really, really bad.
There were a couple of things that I'd like to add to the kit, or at least one thing that I forgot to add was the fire blanket. And buddy, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but the fire blanket is a very, very simple poly blanket that you pull out, and it's reusable. You can clean it up and use it again, but it suppresses fire on pretty much anything that it comes in contact with. They're fairly inexpensive. There will be a link for the Amazon. But like you can buy a 2-pack of these things for like $40, and they're fairly decent size. They have some that you're sized for a person, but they are firefighter recommended items to have, not only in your home but in your gear. There's a bunch of different brands. Prepared Hero, you have Signature. There's a bunch of different things, but that's something that I think that is is good to add. And another, and you can find them OTC or, prescription, but it's Silvadine. Silvadine is very specific to burns. I remember when I got burned, I ended up having to put Silvadine on my face day after day. And for me in particular, because it was on the surface dermis of my face, I had to shave with a single blade razor to keep any scarring down. The fact that I can grow a beard is, pretty significant to me personally, because I never thought that I'd be able to grow a beard again. But I was able to remove enough of the actual burned surface that it was able to get down to some of the, for lack of a better term, fresh meat. And it didn't go super deep, thank goodness.
Once again, Jeremy's got to bring us to Grossville.
Yeah, sorry, man. But you were talking about safes.
It doesn't fail, man. Every episode we got to talk about poop or burns or skin peeling off or brains on the ground. I mean, something.
I know, man. I'll just put it to you this way: if you were to ever see my military medical records, you'd probably need therapy. You'd be like, how do you even exist? Like, how do you function? And I don't know.
I already need therapy from listening to this. It kind of reminds me of like in The Princess Bride, where he's like, why do you wear that mask? Are you burned by acid?
I love that movie. I do not think that word means what you think it means. But you were talking about safes in general and gun safes. A lot of them, they're rated as fire resistant. They call them fireproof. The best safe that I found as far as fire rating was only 2 hours, and that was at 1,850 degrees.
And what was the cost of it?
I mean, it depends
Thousands.
on what it depends on what you're willing to spend.
Yeah.
The problem is not necessarily like for instance, like, it's not the fire that's cooking on the outside. The fire heats up that metal, and if that metal is not insulated well enough, it's cooking on the inside is what it's cooking. And the biggest issue that a lot of people have, like, for instance, they'll put ammunition and their guns and their important documents in one enclosed safe, and basically it becomes a pressure capsule. Like they have one, for instance, that's the Cabela's Signature E-Lock 50 gun safe, and it's $4,000.
I've not found a gun safe yet that I can afford. They're ridiculously expensive, man.
We have one. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's got an hour fire rating time. I can send you a link later on for it, but I think a lot of people, when they think of their guns and their valuables, they think more along the lines of people getting to them. Sometimes they don't think about the world getting to them. Fire, flood, water, those kinds of things. And eventually water will find its way in. Eventually, if you leave a gun safe with stuff in it inside of a fire long enough, it's going to cook the inside. It will melt barrels. I've seen crazy stuff happen into gun safes, but it's like, what are you willing, where are you getting your risk versus risk versus reward? Where are you getting the most out of your money? You can spend a significant amount of money on these things, but you have to really, at the end of the day, what's most valuable to you? Is it stuff or life? Is it stuff or things? It's like, would I feel bad about having to come back and find, like, say, for instance, one of my hunting rifles completely melted into a ball? Yeah, I'd be very sad about that. But that's why we have home insurance. There are calculated risks that we take with the things that we have. And, but life is more valuable. Most people will tell you, man, you only live life, you only live life once. You only, do these things once. That's not true. You live life every day. You only die once. And you living life every day and being prepared for, things that could happen. That's the most important, protecting life. I want to spend as much time on this planet as I can protecting and teaching my family. That's what I want.
My prepper brothers and sisters, for many in California, this isn't just a headline. It's their reality, their homes, their lives upended by nature's fury. Fires like these remind us just how fragile our systems are and why preparation isn't just a hobby, it's a responsibility. To those in the affected areas, know that our thoughts are with you, but thoughts alone aren't enough. If you're in the path of danger, remember, you can replace things, but not lives. Have your go bag ready, your evacuation routes planned, and your communication lines open. And if you're far from the flames today, let this be a call to action. Review your fire preparedness plan. Know how to protect your home, your family, and yourself when disaster strikes. Stay prepped, stay happy. Thanks for listening, and good night.